about startups, from talking to startup founders to everything else around the ecosystem of startups. And we have today we have Amit talking to Abhijit, and for the introductions, I'm going to let Amit and Abhijit sort of come alive with that. All the best to you both, and please keep the questions coming in as you always do. Thank you. And Amit and Abhijit, over to you guys.
Thanks, Ravi. Thank you for your leadership and for setting the tone. Also, not sure if Ninad is joining. Ninad, thank you so much for your chairmanship. I really appreciate setting up this fantastic forum where our viewers, our members can hear directly from some incredible founder. Today, it's my delight to be welcoming Abhijit Anand, who's the founder of AB Coffee. But before I kind of move on to them, my name is Amit. I'm founder of a company called as Galv. We invest in startups, and we've got a startup in fitness tech space ourselves. So today is all about Abhijit. Abhijit, before even we kind of jump into your brand and more about coffee, maybe we want to know a little bit about you, if we can get started with that.
Thanks a lot, Amit. Thanks, Ravi, for the wonderful introduction as well. And to everybody listening, thanks for being with me and Amit today in the conversation. So to start off, Amit, I'll probably take 2 minutes. I like to keep that tight. Introductions can go longer. Born and brought up in the east part of the country. I come from a state called Bihar, from a town called Jamalpur, and studied petroleum engineering from IIT Dhanbad. Worked in a company called Schlumberger for 9 years. Was twice internationally awarded as a Young Professional Award, international and public service in the oil and gas industry. And then 2021, so worked in 6 countries, 6 different job roles with the same company. 2021 is when I came back to India to start a business of my own and landed up to coffee. Been now 4 years, almost 4 years running Up Coffee. It's the number one grab and go coffee company in the country today. In the last 3.5+ years, the idea has been extremely simple: how to make great quality cup of coffee affordable, accessible, and to become the habit for 1 billion Indians in the country.
Excellent, excellent. I always was raised as a person in a family of chai drinkers. I won't call it coffee because chai is an emotion. And then, as I became an office goer, I kind of, got more influenced by coffee drinking. I must say, I always used to enjoy the fragrance and smell of the coffee in growing up years, but never was able to take it. And today I'm an avid coffee drinker with at least 2 to 3 Americanos every day. But, every morning when it's a family time, somewhere that chai crops up, and because it's a family emotion. I want to ask you, why coffee in a nation of chai drinkers where chai is an emotion?
Fantastic. I'll first of all start with that I drink chai too, right? So when I sit with my family, I drink chai, and I was, I'll not say infamous, but I'll say in a very good way. I was known for making some of the best teas in my family.
Wow.
And my actually adoption of coffee happened during my days in Romania in Europe, way back in 2019. And I remember the first 6 months when I used to brew tea, masala tea. And there was a particular way that I used to brew tea, or I still do, where I'll overboil it, make it thicker, more of like cutting chai, and then used to invite some of my colleagues to introduce them to chai. I always felt chai is India, and I need to get them to drink some great chai, not the chai lattes of the world that people have been introduced abroad, right? Now, for me, the simple thing is, once I'll start with a saying that I have: there is life before and after coffee. I think after is better. And for me, that conversion happened, as I said, in Romania. When I came back to India, the idea is not that it's a chai or a coffee battle. It's basically both are beverages. Now, probably I'll ask you a question. What do you think is the second most consumed beverage in the world?
Alcoholic, non-alcoholic.
Anything. Second beverage in the world.
Possibly beer.
So number one is water, expected.
Okay, yeah.
Number two is coffee.
Okay.
And there's a very strong fight with beer, as like you said. But number two is coffee, right? Now, the way I look at it is that it's a behavior. right? Now, chai serves a purpose, coffee serves a purpose. Some people drink milk, some people drink milkshakes, right? Now, among all of these categories, which one is a productivity-driven beverage, right? And that's caffeine. And that's higher in coffee beverage that you drink. Now, for me, that is how, so it was my evolution moving from chai to coffee. Do I drink chai today? I do. Does India drink chai today a lot today? It does. Will it drink in future? It will. But will the coffee consumption go from India being on the 69th place in the world in terms of per capita coffee consumption to moving up the ladder, just how China did? Just how I'm sure that we all of us are aware that China was the first tea country, majority country in the world. And today, if you look at the consumption of coffee in the country, it's wild. So it's about how lifestyle changes, disposable income changes, GDP changes, personal preferences changes, and then the country and the people start adopting to different behaviors, right? And that's where we were there when 2022 we started coffee, and that's my evolution, to say the least, in the way I look at the category.
Lovely. Excellent. I have a lot of good questions, and I also want to respect the viewers who've started posting the questions. So I'll go with theirs first. The first question that I've received today is, what was the moment when you realized that there was a strong startup opportunity in India's coffee space?
Fantastic question, right? So when I moved back to India in 21, I wanted to do wine. Bit of history, right? And the reason I wanted to do wine was that I realized the gap that was there. Great quality wine at the right price was not there, right? So I could get a bottle of wine, brilliant quality in Romania. In India, that would cost me any of the range of $2,500 plus, right? So I said that's what I'll do. But when I landed, I realized there's a lot of regulatory concerns that disclose. The blood and sweat may not be able to build the business alone. And there are some other factors that comes in. And at that time, I was also a coffee person. I drink thrice a day, right? Just like you saw, this is my third Americano of the day. So I ordered coffees at home. This is February 2021, just before the second wave of COVID. And I spent 24,000 rupees in a month.
Wow.
Right. Now, when that happened, the first thing was the numbers in my head started ringing, and I said, that's the same amount of money I used to spend in Romania. The GDP of the country, the spending capacity of the country is dramatically different, right? So that was the first trigger. So what I did was I actually bought a coffee machine. Bought at home, offer riches from Amazon for 20,000 rupees, right? And when that landed at home, I saw the machine and I said, I have the exact same machine in Bucharest in Romania. And that machine in Europe, I bought it for 7,000 rupees. And then I looked up at Alibaba, that was 1,800 rupees. Said, great opportunity, let's do coffee machines. Keep in mind, I wanted to do a business. That idea was dropped. I'm looking at an opportunity that I believe in, right? So now it took me a month to realize there's no time. Indians right now, for a couple of years back, 10 years back, they were buying refrigerators, then they bought washing machines. Now, right now is the time of microwave and OTGs, right? So the coffee machines at home is going to take time. And then I went deeper into the segment to realize, I traveled 20 states, 12 states and 20 cities, worked in spoken to more than 200 people in different cafe owners, live in Chikmagalur, traveled around Northwest, East, South, to realize one fundamental thing in the country. Coffee in India, the way it's positioned, is more of a real estate business, luxury-oriented business, than as a product business. Right. Okay. So anywhere you go around the country, you will find an average cup of coffee for 220 rupees to anywhere to 500 rupees, right? Yeah. What's an average cup of coffee in the US? 270 rupees. What's an average cup of price in UK? 300 rupees. What's an average cup of price of coffee in Singapore? 310 rupees. In Australia, 290 rupees, right? And then many of these countries that I had named actually gets coffee from India. India is the 5th largest producer, 7th largest exporter of coffee in the world. It produced some of the best Robustas in the world and some amazing Arabicas in the world. So the problem was not supply. That was a basic math saying, it's probably expensive because of supply problem. It's not a supply problem. It's a positioning problem, right? So then I realized there's an entire white space in the country where coffee as a lifestyle and a habit product was not being picked up, right? And I could see that because I'd seen that in other places, right? And unfortunately, fortunately, many of the international coffee companies that entered India, which are habit coffee companies in their home countries, positioned themselves as a luxury cafe place. Now, that is where the resistance is. And then it's a chicken and egg problem, right? Not many people will consume enough coffee because it's beyond that 1% of India. And they're not consume enough because you don't consume coffee just for the coffee, but also for the real estate. And the businesses may never be able to get at par with PPP. What I mean by PPP here is that if a cup of cappuccino in the US is 270, in India it should be 95, just by price parity, right? Purchasing price parity. No, it didn't happen. It won't happen because there are not enough people walking in, not enough people, and they can't reduce prices because not people walking in. There are not people trying enough because it's outside the accessible zone. That's when the idea of a coffee kicked in, that there's an incredible white space between a 10 rupees tapri and a 300 cafes. And India actually migrated from 10 to 300, forgot the entire daily pricing, which is $100 for a great cup of coffee, single origin. That's where the idea was born, and took me a year for the research, build the plan, and then launch the brand in 2022.
Lovely, lovely. And good to hear about some of the key points that you mentioned about habit forming, white space. You did mention about luxury, real estate, and somewhere you kind of bordered around saying this is the this is more about a office goers kind of a thing, right? I'm a guy big on data, always big on data, but over the period of years, either as an investment banker and now as running my own firm, investing in few, I have realized that great brands have never been built on data and research. The great brands have always built on emotion. And I often quote example of Parleji to people on this one. Now, on that note, chai or tea is for conversations. They say you build conversations on chai, but you do business on coffee. And that is an emotion, at least, I learned as an investment banker because few of my biggest deals, few of the best negotiations that I have ever cracked, they always happened over coffee. Maybe that's my story, but that's something, I want to know from you along with this challenge that along with this question that people have posed saying what were the biggest challenges you faced while building the brand in market traditionally dominated by coffee. While I gave an emotional aspect of it which said chai is for conversations and coffee is for businesses, what's your view, and if we can keep it succinct? Yeah.
So I'll say we don't look, and at least I'll say my point of view, myself and AV as a brand never look chai as a competition, right? We never say that it's a fight with chai. So the entire one interesting insight, and I'm sure there will be some members from that demography in the call today. Amit, I'm not sure about you, but a lot of people I don't know your age also, I don't want to guess it. I'm 35, right? I got from chai to coffee, and that was because of the conditions I was exposed to, the places I traveled, the people I met, and the people I was exposed to in my work experience. However, today, if you talk to 25, aged 25 and under, they're coffee first people.
Yes.
Right? What was your favorite show, Amit, when you were growing up on television?
So my age is 49. This would help you guess what was my favorite show. My favorite show used to be in growing up years, we only had two channels, there's a DD1 and DD2. So obviously, we would, on a weekend watch Ramayana. But yeah, there were certain cartoon characters. He-Man was one of my favorite ones in growing up years in school times. Yes.
Got it. So, for example, one of the shows that I used to watch a lot when I was growing was Shaktiman, right?
Okay.
It used to be Hum Panch. Now, in Hum Panch and Shaktiman, what did we see? We see chai cups.
Yep.
We see family bonding over chai. We see
Yep.
friends and family going to the neighborhood chai shop. That's
Yep.
what I grew up watching. And by default, chai became the thing. Today, when the kids grow up, they watch Amazon, Netflix, Prime, Hotstar. They see the series. What do they watch? They see coffee in hand.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that has
my daughters, they're always about that. Yeah.
Right. So they are coffee first generation.
Yes.
Now, and 2021 was the first time that actually Gen Zs came into workforce. They were actually delayed by 2 years because of COVID, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they came into workforce. Now imagine an entire workforce or entire people coming with disposable income, coffee first in nature, and there's absolutely a white space in terms of what can be habituated from. There's none. Right? You name one brand which is like a coffee in the country today with the scale that we are in, not even 1/4 of our scale is currently there because a lot of people look at the business very differently. right? We look at the business like scale, habit, availability, distribution, serving that use case, right? Now, that is the reason why when we build the entire category and we are building it, and the way we have done it is not looking at chai as a competitor, as an accomplice. On Sundays in the morning, when me and my wife sit down, the first thing we have is a chai and a toast, right? That's a non-negotiable. But when we walk out, both of us, she'll either have a matcha and I'll either have an Americano or a protein coffee. But that's how the evolution happens. So it's a complementary beverage depending the time of the day you are, the people you are with, rather than saying you're competing with it. So far, we have not faced the challenge. And we don't see that facing. In fact, we see a lot of people maturing into that particular aspect and trials. Like I was saying earlier, right? In the past, because the way coffee was positioned, the trials was extremely difficult. Right now, we are saying that if you're an Up Coffee subscriber, you get a cup of cappuccino, single origin, special dividend at literally $50. Right?
Wow.
So now that's a very different mind change shift to get through a lot. So resistance has gone, which means then you can try different kind of beverages, different kind of mood, iced, hot, varieties, flavors, protein into it, matcha into it, boba into it. Now these all of these things, these items actually infuse into your daily lifestyle. Right? So that's the way we look at, and that's why we say that we don't have a challenge. In fact, we do see this as a evolving journey as India matures, and we do have great examples around the world how countries and people have matured in those countries, and we see India going the same path.
Yeah. So it's very interesting on this last point, the last answer that you gave, you mentioned 2 points. One is price, one is positioning, right? In terms of, you spoke about Gen Zs, what are they addicted to? You spoke about the price point. You also spoke about what time of the day, what do you have? There's also something about tradition and experience. So I take this reference of when I was setting up a large investment banking operations in Chennai, and for that 1 year I stayed there. There's this whole experience of the filter coffee, right? And trust me, it was I'm sure the taste was very nice and I enjoyed it, minus the sugar that they put in over there, huge amount, which I hate because I hate sugar. But the whole experience was very mesmerizing in terms of how they kind of bring it all together, right? What's your view about filter coffee being a traditional, favorable spot, and also the experience that a filter coffee maker kind of offers to you? Do you see that as a reference point for people before they kind of adopt your coffee or a flavor? And how has the adoption been in terms of tier two versus tier three cities, or north versus south versus east versus west? Any comparables?
Fantastic question, right? I always say filter coffee is to the south, what is chai is to the rest of India. Right. So, and that's the reason why, because the coffees have been grown traditionally in the south part of the country, right? And we do have some of the coffees now grown in northeast as well, but majority still more than 80% grows in the south. Right now, that is very similar to the chai phenomena in the rest of the country, right? Everybody you talk in the south will have a grandma's recipe for filter coffee, right? The entire experience of the entire decoction, the mocha pot, the beans plus chicory mix in different proportions, right? That's a taste, that's an emotion. But having said that, Amit, filter coffee is one recipe. It's hot, it's sugar, it's chicory, it's coffee, it's brilliant. When I go to Bangalore, I mandatorily have filter coffee. I love it. We don't sell filter coffee, but I love filter coffee when I go to those IEDCs of the world, right? Now, for the rest of the country, it's the same phenomena like chai. So now the way I look at this is, people say they drink coffee, but people drink coffee beverages. The best way to look at it is, Amit, come to an Up Coffee store, come to any other coffee shop in the country. You will see, while the number one purchase of the people would be cappuccino, and I have a very strong feeling why cappuccino sells the most, because that's what I think the majority of us have heard that word, and we end up drinking a cappuccino. And some of us love it, and we repeat on it. And it's a very similar equation of filter coffee, because it's strong coffee with milk and froth. And on the other hand, with chai as well, it's a similar comparison of one ingredient and milk, right? And we Indians love milk, majority of us, right? So now, but you look, the next for 60% of the people, they are actually experimenting with beverages, right? So it's the vanillas of the world, hazelnuts of the world, whipped creams of the world, matchas of the world. Now, those beverages are actually the core of the entire ecosystem. Like one very interesting fact, like almost every, and for us definitely, 60% of our orders are cold beverages, right? And that's largely true for any cafe in the country. But Also similarly true for us, right? Now, if that is the proportion you're talking about, there is no comparable, right? You're not comparing with filter coffee or chai. It's a very different world. And that is because that it's a very different way of consuming those beverages, right? You get a beverage, you drink for 2 hours, you indulge into it in variety of ways, right? So now that's one way to, one of the answers. And when it comes to experience, Amit, while I love the filter coffee experience, the frothing happens, the way the listening will happen, and the way it's mixed. But you come to any coffee store as well, you'll get the same experience like a barista. It's a differentiated experience, right? Now you have a barista who's going to take an order from you, who's going to talk to you, or you, in our case, mostly people order on the app. But the entire science and art of saying from the time of grinding the coffee beans to tamping it to actually swirling it and then putting in the portafilter into the machines and actually making sure the calibration is right. To give you an idea, one shot of espresso, which is 20 grams of coffee beans, takes 25 to 30 seconds to extract into a 40 to 50 ml of espresso, depending on what concentration is. 2 seconds here and there, it's either sour or it's bitter. Ooh. Right? Now, that's art. In our coffee, the outlet space, we call it the war zone. Because we think the barista is actually handling so many stuff together. And we have an extensive policy that if anybody goes into the store, even me and everybody from my team, you can't talk to a barista unless you're ordering, unless there's no customer in the store. Right? So basically, the barista is busy doing his job, his or her job, right? So at that point in time, we let him or her do the job because that's an art. Right, so these are small little things that goes in terms of experience.
Big one. It did not ever occur to me, even though I've been always fascinated with this whole skill of coffee making. Two very important points that you mentioned that statistically, now that I kind of reflect upon it, chai is largely skewed towards a warm drink, and coffee, towards cold. Even though I take a hot one, but yes, I see most of the consumption having in the cold space. In fact, I started as a cold coffee drinker, right? That's a very interesting thing. The second thing I never knew about that. It's so much of a skill and an art to be making a great coffee, in terms of few seconds here and there. I'll come quickly to the questions because they're kind of pouring in huge numbers here. When you started this company, Abhijit, so typically the startup process is you have an idea, you kind of ideate, you try to do a proof of concept, you do kind of a minimum viable product. So from your perspective, being if I may take liberty of saying FMCG or a drink brand, right? What were the first 3 steps that you took, which kind of firmed up your thinking that, yes, I'm going to take a bigger jump on this after this minimum viable product or a POC, whatever it is?
Fantastic question, right? So I'll probably bring it to my personal case, how I did it, right? Yes. So for me, the number one thing was conviction into the category, right? So is it Abhijit's problem or is it nature's problem, India's problem, right? Is it, what is the quantum we are talking about? And in that particular way, what I actually did was to actually travel across the country. I want to see the problem is deep. Right now, this included primary and secondary data research. Right, so one is primary. You talk to a lot of people. You try to understand why has nobody done this in the past. Am I the first one to do this? Cannot be true in a country like India, right? And if people have done it, where did they go wrong, right? And the second point was looking at the secondary research. What's happening around the world? What are the parallel use cases that has happened? Where is India's Q2 coffee? Where is India actually today drinking coffee? What is my demography? What is my ideal consumer base? What are the 7 beverages of food that he or she consumes? And where do I infuse in his or her life? Right. So these were the first thing that I did. So basically building conviction into the space. Now, the second thing was actually making a decision. I was working with this multinational company. I have spent 9 years of my career. I studied petroleum, then masters in political marketing, then did a law degree while working alongside for 9 years. One international was, and I'm saying, forget about it. From oil and gas, I'm getting into food and beverage. Now, very interesting fact, Amit, I'm not a foodie. I eat to survive, but I love to drink. Right now, I'm not a foodie, and I'm getting into food and beverage. Now, this was the point to actually make a decision. That was the second important point. And the way I did it was to see my financial independence, right? So my financial independence, where am I, where I'll be in 5 years down the line, it's a risk I'm taking. I'm moving out of this, where my family will be, and everything around it. Right? And the way I do it is like every year I take a thinking triplet. So what I do is 3 days a year, I'll just distance myself from the world, and I'll start looking at it from inside out and outside in. Both the exercises happening at the same time, in those 3 days. Okay. This was October 2021. Conviction was there. Started in February 2021. October 2021, conviction was built. This was the point when I said, I'm going to go all in, right? Come out of that, the third part was the MVP, right? Okay, decision is taken, conviction is there. Where do I start? Now, when the MVP was built, idea was extremely simple. Has to be a small format store. Has to be priced under 100. For example, a cappuccino is priced at 97, right? And all my menu items end at 7. That's a different story. And it has nothing to do with any kind of numerology with 7, but more of a science, right? So ended with 7, right? Now, what are the MVP things required? So I say my ideal outlet size is 4,200 square feet, should be located on a high street, should be near to young, under 25-year, majority of the customer base should be that, right? These are the minimum beverages and food items that I'm going to serve. This is the user experience that it's going to be. I wanted a WhatsApp ordering tool on day 1 of the launch because that's my strength when I'm propagating this on the go, and it saves time. And you build that particular model. First store was a 40 square feet store in Warsaw on the JP Road, right? Now, I remember that the planning was so I would say it was to the point that my last day in my last working company was 30th of May, and the company was launched, Up Coffee was launched on 2nd of June. Wow. Right. So to the point that and so a lot of this was the third point that happened. So A, conviction, B, you going all in, and that is a major decision point. There's no coming back for the next several years. And the third one is building an MVP, right? An MVP in terms of what is the minimum ideal state that you would want to reach to, not ideal state, but a minimum go-to stage that you want to go to your consumer when you're actually launching the brand that you're envisioning. So these are the 3 major things that I went through before launching Up Coffee.
So just on this one, from a financial standpoint, because you did mention about how kind of structured the steps, did you raise funds early, or was it all bootstrapped in the beginning?
6 months, all my money.
Okay.
So my thought always has been, Amit, that it's my idea. I have a conviction on this. I need to build it. If I take external money, I need to be fully convinced that the business is going to be incredibly large, and I test with my own money. So that was my initial thought. That's where the first PC was
with multiple coffee brands wanting to occupy a space right now, and we work out of a co-working space, and I understand that there are some tie-ups over here. How easy or difficult was it for you to position it to the investors, and what was the compelling point that you presented to investors?
So initially, to be pretty honest, Amit, first 3 months of the business, I think even customers didn't understand. Right? So customers thought it's a single outlet doing cheaper coffees, and people think that in India specifically, the more expensive it is, it's better. Yeah. It's unfortunate. It's a perception, right? So now coffee is positioned on a pedestal. The moment you say that, and one of the ways, for all the listeners and for you as well, next time you go to a cafe, right? Any branded premium cafe, you go to one, and majority of them, they'll have the coffee being shiny and black and oily. You know what it means? It is commercial. It's over roasted. The flavors are gone. We don't know what's single origin. We don't know what's specialty, right? So initially when we launched, we used to say single origin specialty grade coffees. The biggest problem was 98 out of 100 people didn't understand what's specialty, right? People understand taste, right? Great tasting coffee at a price that you can drink daily. Now, at that point in time...
your tagline to the investors?
So our tagline at that point was democratizing specialty coffee in India. Right? And I remember one of the writers in Warsaw who used to be, I think he used to work with Bollywood, and he tried a coffee at Warsaw outlet, and he came and said, I remember that word, the story that he put, finally an Indian coffee chain which does coffees at honest price. Right? So then we said our subline is specialty coffee at honest prices.
So when we went to the coffee that you said over here, and this kind of gives reference to one of the questions that I think Mangesh has asked, saying, Have you tried Araku Valley coffee? How can we as Indian promote GI tagged Indian coffee globally?
So I'll answer the first part. We did a small lot of Araku coffee in the month of October. And this was actually live for a month across pan India. And we actually, so because we are sourcing that single origin specialty grade, we also look at supply and demand, what's available. And last year has been rough, to put it in a better way, for green coffee in India. And that's when we did source from Araku. Now, to answer your question, how do I get GIQ tagged? So, coffee across the world. Now, I'll give you, and I think a lot of people, a lot of us will relate. When I started up coffee, a lot of my friends not from India, because I spent a substantial amount of time outside India as well. A lot of friends outside India didn't know that we are fifth largest producer of coffee. In fact, I didn't know while I was in Romania. We produce such great coffee and in such quantums. I didn't know that until 2021. And I know that a lot of people around the world still don't know that. In fact, majority of our coffees are exported to Russia, to Italy, and the US. And people don't know they're drinking Indian coffees. Right. So I think first thing is awareness, talking about it, consuming it, and actually being proud of what we actually produce. Right. Yeah. So, and second thing is actually going out in the world and talking about it. So first Indian coffee that I actually saw in Romania was in one cafe where it said India green beans. And I don't remember which state was that. But at that point in time, I was not as initiated into the segment. But that was the only time I actually saw. And it's a hard fact. So in order to answer your question objectively, actually order to do it, we need to talk about it. We need to drink it. We need to bring it to our connections, to our network, that how big we are and how great coffees to be produced, and actually tell to the world that in fact a lot of coffees that people are proud when they go to Italy and say great coffee, half of them is actually Indian Robustas, right? I mean, and that's something that a lot of people don't know. I didn't know it when I was there. I only learned when I came back and I actually looked into it. So yeah.
Lovely. Excellent. I do have more questions popping in. Some of it you have already answered. Maybe, the respected members have joined late, but we'll kind of succinctly answer for everyone's benefit. What advice would you give founders pitching in investors who may not fully understand the F&B space? I can talk about as an investor. If the investor is not understanding the fully space, then possibly don't even approach them, right? Because they may not be particularly interested. But hey, what's your take on this one?
So the way I'll explain this is specifically to my segment, right? We happen to be selling coffee. And I always say we're not a coffee company. We're a habit company, right? We're a habit company whose veg is coffee. So an investor may not understand food and beverage consumption, but I'm sure the investor understands habit. Because what is quick commerce? It's habit. What is food delivery? It's habit, right? Now, what is Coca-Cola? It's habit, right? Because and they become synonymous with a particular category, right? So in that case, idea is to build adjacencies to particular investors to what sector they are in. But like you said, will I go to a purely AI tech investor? In his last 30 transactions, he has done 30 AI companies. Is there a likelihood to him to understand this particular business as well? Maybe not, right? That would be the way I look at it. But will I still try to find adjacencies to some extent? I'll try to. But will I go on to convince? And I have gone through the path where I've been in a meeting and I feel like, am I really convincing him to understand him or her to the business? And then I'm in the wrong place. I'm in the wrong room, right? So that's the way to look at it.
I really like that word constantly that you're insisting about habit forming. And it reminds me of the time, when very initially, even though I was an investment banker for the longest time, I was, pitching in the corporate wellness angle to my story. And I went to one of the CHROs because most of the CXOs were friends. I said, tell me one parameter that you personally and organizationally set in every year for yourself and still feel that you've not done enough or you've not been able to achieve, and you want to do it every 1st January. And they said personal fitness, right? Because every time they have a goal and every time you say, is sal nahi hua. I said, that's what we simplify and we become your partner of choice. And who's habit forming for you? So exactly the word habit forming, like you very beautifully explained. While you said it so nicely about habit forming and anything that is habit forming, um, either translates into a story or translates into a number, right? We'll talk about story different, particularly more numbers. You as a respected founder, what are the top three parameters for you in the business? I'm assuming the first one is how many customers utilize it. But if not, what are the top three, say, for lack of any better word, parameters or SLA which you look for?
So number one thing that we actually look for is subscriptions, right? So just to give a little bit more detail about it, uh, 52% of our transactions happen on our Coffee app, all the offline transactions, out of which 54% of the transactions are subscriptions. They're the only F&B company in the country to make F&B subscription successful. Now, what's a subscription? Subscription is people paying in advance for the next 20 coffees in the next 30 days. Unheard of. It's not wallet. It's not, it's basically the idea is simple. You pay for 20 coffees today. Everything on the menu, even if it's priced $77 or it's priced $297, you get it for 99. And you get to choose whatever you want to, with a milk add-on free, with a flavor add-on free. What are we doing? We're building habit. So one of the metrics that we always look for is subscription metrics. In subscription, we look for number of cards, we look for number of coffee beans that have been active on 31st of the month or 30th of the month to say how many people are actually pre-committing for the coffees. That is a very clear indication of habit. Number one. Number two that we track for is consumer ratings. Now, in a business like ours, I always say F&B business is the most brutal, most difficult business to build because it's not a food business. Yeah. It's a process and operating business.
Yep.
Right. It's not about building 5 outlets. There's no scale. Right. When scale comes in, there comes complexity. It's very similar. I mean, I always say aviation is the most difficult in the world, but aviation is very much standardized, and F&B is still yet to be standardized. Right. So it's actually one of the most difficult, brutal businesses in the world to build. Every single moment you're on the cliff. We have today roughly 3 lakhs of orders per month, 3 lakh orders per month. And in those 3 lakh orders, which are served from 90 plus locations by 420 baristas in 6 different cities, imagine every single customer, every single time is different. And their preferences are different. Amit drinks black. I know a customer, Amit, who is 6'4", probably 100 kgs, more like a bodybuilder, drinks 3 Americanos a day with 3 sachets of sugar in each Americano. First time I saw, I said it's a crime. But it's his preference. You can't change it, right? I've seen people adding 3 kinds of flavors, hazelnut, vanilla, and caramel in the same coffee. Probably that's a choice. And it's because you must say so.
I wonder if it's also about either the time of the day or what experience you've had. Maybe if you are coming out of a meeting with a boss versus a meeting with a wife, right? It kind of makes you, I don't know if the mood has an element of influence on how the coffee tastes.
Oh, 100%. I do believe it. And that's why you have a variety of beverages. That's why I say it's a business of coffee beverages, right? Now, so the second thing that we actually track is NPS. Right? We look at consumer ratings, consumer reviews, because that actually gives you the pulse what's happening across, right? And in our business, consumer ratings are the easiest. Everything is public, right? So that's the number 2 thing that we track. And then the number 3 thing that we actually track is the ops metrics, right? So in ops metrics, we have KPT, which is kitchen preparation time, MFR, which is mark food ready compliance. I can get the
third one.
So it's KPT, kitchen preparation time, MFR, MFR, which is mark food ready compliance, and third one is TAT, which is turnaround time to actually get your coffees in, right? So these are 3 again metrics on the business side that we track. These are all businesses metrics. Now there are some other metrics that we track across functions, but these are 3 key things that we look at. I personally look at every day at 10 a.m. in the morning.
Lovely, excellent. At this moment of time, because there's a question related to it, you might want to raise your coffee cup or mug, whatever there's in front of you with your branding.
Okay.
And the question is, we spotted you drinking your own brand. Is that a conscious habit? And how does staying close to the product influence your decision making as a founder?
So I drink twice a day. This is my last coffee of the day, and I try to wrap up the coffees by 6 p.m. So that's what I'm in my 3rd coffee of the day. So is it a conscious choice? It's a habit, right? So it's a habit. I get into that. I probably start with an Americano, go to in the afternoon, I typically take a protein coffee, either a Pro-Caf, Americano Pro-Caf, or sometimes signature cold coffee Pro-Caf. And the last one is either an Americano again or an iced latte. Right? So that's my habit. Everybody has different ways of looking at it. When I want to indulge, I'll take a matcha. Right now, going back, staying close to the product, I think that's business. As a founder, the best way, and I always say to my team, the best way actually to test your efforts is look at from the consumer lens,
Yeah.
right? So one of the things, for example, to give an example, whenever we launch an outlet, a new outlet, the NSO manager, which is new stores opening manager, I always tell him, before you go to the store opening, remove your hat of being an up coffee colleague. Think you're either a customer or let's say somebody who doesn't like the brand. Find mistakes. Attention to detail is what will get us far, right?
True.
So that's the way I always look at. So hence, looking at the consumer base, looking at all our ordering channels, trying it out myself, looking what's working, what's not working, helps me to improvise fast, helps me to take action fast, and actually remove every laggard into the system in a very fast manner. And that's the reason why, for example, we've been able to do such things at a much faster pace. That's the reason why every single month there is a new menu line coming in. That's the reason why we have roughly 18% of the entire menu category order market share in the cities that we operate in just 3 years. It's just because we can move fast with the decisions that we make and we are close to the consumer.
Lovely, lovely. And I love the way you kind of narrated the full answer and kind of just constantly came to mind in a single line. If this is a product I need to buy, will I buy it? If this is a brand I would like to attach myself with, would I? And if we keep these two parameters for our own self, I think, you really get it whether, we will be successful or not. On that note, since we spoke about brand, there's a member who's raised a question: how important is branding and customer experience in building a beverage startup today? Well, quite interestingly, and I might want to give a anecdote of my childhood days. When I was growing up, and there was this only coffee brand. I don't want to name them because obviously it's not relevant. The only big coffee brand in India. And when their advertisement will come in, the aftertaste, and I had not tasted coffee yet till that time, but aftertaste of advertisement and branding was that if you're going out with friends or if you're going out for a date, that's coffee time. That's what branding does on you, right? Similarly, there was a chocolate brand wherein, if someone is kind of having a joyful celebratory time, so they linked their product or brand to celebration. So clearly branding helps, but hey, again, some quick inputs from your side. We have 3 minutes left, and I'll have some punchy, quick fire round in the last 2 minutes with you.
Fantastic, Amit. So I think brand is something, for me, brand is trust, right? And the trust builds by doing the same thing again and again consistently and actually fulfilling the promise of the consumer. That's brand, right? Now, brand cannot be bought, brand cannot be pumped. Brand is built over the period of time, right? That's our way of looking into this. And how important is this? Extremely important. Because when you are actually becoming bigger, better, larger, one thing that will always get the customers to come to you back is the entire trust on the brand. And in this case, I always take the example of distillery. The moment you are in a place and they have 10 water bottles, one thing, commodity, 10 rupees, you might get a water bottle for 8, to still go on distillery because that's a trust that you have built on that green cap in that particular shelf, right? And it's not bought. It's several decades of actually building that trust. Differentiates 100%, makes you a winner in that case. That's the way I look at in the entire category. When I look at the coffee category, currently we are the largest in the grab and go space, right? But who knows grab and go? A consumer doesn't care about a grab and go in a cafe. The consumer cares about great coffee, consistent, right price, drink daily, and that's the promise as a brand. And you fulfill that day in and day out, you win as a brand.
Lovely. Excellent. I think broadly I've kind of covered all the questions. There is one question about how should founders think about differentiation in crowded FMCG and startup market. I think in many ways you answered, but a quick one if you want to answer there.
So I'll just read through the question.
It says, how should founders think about differentiation in a crowded FMCG stroke startup market?
No, fantastic. First of all, find a niche, right? So find a niche, find an area where you see that the delta could be 10x. Mm-hmm. So when I say niche, don't look for a small niche that something is there. For example, I heard some time back that we are getting affordable and great quality coffee at $100, and there is a cafe which is doing at $200. Hence, a brand can be built at $150. No, I don't think so. The delta now is not as big as what you're thinking. Right. So then it's a crowded space. You get lost into the space and then there's not enough traction in order to win the category. Right. So first thing is find out your strengths, validate the idea that there's enough depth to create multiples into that, and why somebody else can't do it. Why will the brand which is sitting at a pedestal today in that category, why they can't replicate your model? You have those solid ideas. That's when you just simply double down and execute, 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 and that is what wins.
Lovely. Excellent. I do have some lot of questions kind of putting in the Q&A section, and will request Anand to kind of share with you separately if they can be responded, because a lot of them have already been answered during the course. But I'll try to do something in a quick fire. We just have last 30 seconds. Says, do you think, and it's possibly yes or no, followed by short answer if you want to. Do you think there will be use of AI in your venture stroke coffee ventures? Yes or no?
Yes, and we're already using it.
Lovely. Excellent. Uh, Coffee prices globally
Sorry.
increasing, closer home. Do you think with more manufacturing space in India, coffee price will get more regulated? Yes or no?
Should get regulated.
Okay, lovely. Long-term vision, more physical, more digital for scale.
Physical stores, digital ordering.
Yeah. More vending machines or more delivery?
No, so neither vending, neither delivery. Solve the customer use case wherever the consumer wants. So a distribution
Yeah.
unit with a barista and the machine set up. You want it at home, it's delivery. You want to walk in, it's a store.
Yeah. Sachets or customization?
Customization any day.
Lovely. One thing which you will say as your biggest lesson till date in context of your business?
Hiring right people at the right time.
Good, lovely. Hey, listen, Abhijit, I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation today, and I would have loved to continue more. There might be some more questions which Anant will kind of arrange for you, but I'm so grateful that we spoke today. Personally, I'm taking a lot of notes. I won't particularly call it a generational gap, but there's a lot that I kind of learned out of your beautiful experience as an entrepreneur, and would love to stay connected. Thank you so much for taking your time and talking to us, Abhijit, today. And thank you to all the members and panel respected attendees today for joining us. Really appreciate. Please note that every Thursday at 5 o'clock, we do the session. It's flat 45 minutes. And we'd love to have you again and again with all the respected founders to share their experiences. Thank you again, everyone. And thank you specifically to you, Abhijit.
Thanks a lot, Amit. Thanks, everyone.
Take care.